let me tell you something that might hurt, but it might also save you. You're not heartbroken. You're addicted. Not to them, but to how they made you feel. And right now, your mind is not trying to heal, it's trying to reconnect. That's why you keep checking your phone, even when you know there's nothing new. That's why your thoughts keep going back to them, even when you try to move on. That's why a part of you still believes maybe they'll come back. But let's be honest for a moment. If they wanted to be there, they would be. And that truth hurts more than anything else. Because now you're stuck between two realities. One where you know it's over, and one where you still feel like it isn't. And that gap, that's where the pain lives. You don't just miss them. You miss the routine, the messages, the late night conversations, the feeling of being chosen. Because when someone chooses you, it gives you a sense of certainty. And when they leave, they don't just take themselves, they take that certainty with them. So now you're left questioning everything: your worth, your value, your place in their life. And your brain starts asking dangerous questions like, what did I do wrong? Why wasn't I enough? What do they have that I don't? But here's the truth. No one tells you. You're not searching for answers. You're searching for relief because your brain wants to escape this uncomfortable feeling. And it thinks the fastest way to do that is to go back to them. That's why you feel like texting them. Not because it's right, but because it feels like the quickest way to feel okay again. But what you don't realize is that temporary relief comes at a permanent cost. Every time you reach out, every time you chase, every time you try to prove your worth to someone who already walked away, you lose a little bit of yourself. Not all at once, but slowly, quietly, until one day you don't even recognize who you've become. Someone who overthinks everything. Someone who waits for replies. Someone who feels anxious over silence. And that's not who you were before them. You weren't this version of yourself. You had peace. You had confidence. You had control. And now, it feels like all of that depends on someone who isn't even here anymore. So let me ask you something. Why are you giving that much power to someone who chose to leave? Why are you letting their absence define your value? Because the moment you start chasing someone who walked away, you're not fighting for love. You're fighting against reality. And reality is simple. They left. And no amount of texting, no perfectly crafted message, no emotional paragraph is going to change a decision they already made. And deep down, you know that. But your emotions are louder than your logic. And that's the real battle. Not between you and them, but between your mind and your feelings. And right now, your feelings are winning. But that changes today. Because once you understand what's really happening inside you, you stop reacting and you start controlling. And that's where your power comes back. Now that you understand you're not just heartbroken, let's go deeper. Because what you're feeling right now is not just emotional, it's chemical. Your brain is in withdrawal. And once you understand this, everything starts to make sense. When you were with them, your brain was constantly releasing dopamine. That's the chemical responsible for pleasure, reward, and motivation. Every text message, every notification, every moment of attention gave you a small hit of dopamine. And over time, your brain got used to it. Not just used to it, dependent on it. They became your source of emotional stimulation, your routine, your habit. Think about it like this. You didn't just lose a person. You lost a pattern your brain was comfortable with. And now your brain is trying to restore that pattern. That's why you feel restless. That's why your thoughts keep going back to them. That's why you feel like something is missing, even when you try to distract yourself. Because this isn't just about memories. It's about chemistry. And here's where it gets dangerous. Your brain doesn't care about what's good for you. It cares about what feels familiar. So even if that relationship wasn't perfect, even if it had problems, even if deep down you know it wasn't right, your brain still wants it back. Because it was predictable. It was known. And the unknown feels uncomfortable. So your brain starts creating illusions. It highlights the good memories, the laughs, the connection, the moments that made you feel special. And it quietly ignores everything else. The arguments, the confusion, the times you felt unappreciated, the moments you felt like you were giving more than you were receiving. Your brain edits the story, not to show you the truth, but to make you crave the past. And that's why moving on feels so hard. Because you're not just letting go of a person, you're fighting against your own mind. And this is where most people lose. They think something is wrong with them. They think, why can't I just move on? Why am I still thinking about them? Why does this still hurt so much? And because they don't understand what's happening, they go back. They text. They reach out. They reopen something that should have stayed closed. Not because they're weak, but because they're unaware. But now you're aware. Now you understand this feeling is temporary. This urge is chemical. This attachment is not permanent. It just feels like it is. And that changes everything. Because when you understand something, you stop being controlled by it. Now listen carefully. This next part is important. Withdrawal always feels worst at the beginning. That's when your brain is craving the most. That's when the urge to reach out is strongest. That's when you feel like you need them. But if you can sit with that feeling, without reacting, without texting, without chasing, something incredible happens. Your brain starts to adjust. The craving starts to decrease. The thoughts start to slow down. The emotional intensity starts to fade. Not overnight, not instantly, but gradually. And every time you resist the urge to go back, you're training your brain to let go. You're breaking the cycle. You're regaining control. And that's the part no one talks about. Healing is not about forgetting them. It's about rewiring yourself. It's about teaching your mind, I don't need this to feel okay. And once you reach that point, everything changes. Because now you're not acting out of need, you're acting out of choice. And there's a big difference between the two. Need creates desperation. Choice creates power. Right now, you feel like you need them. But that's not the truth. That's just your brain reacting to loss. And the more you understand that, the less power that feeling has over you. So the next time you feel the urge to text them, pause and remind yourself, this is not love. This is withdrawal. And I don't need to react to it. I just need to let it pass. Because it will pass. It always does. And when it does, you'll realize something important. You were never as dependent on them as you thought. You just hadn't given yourself enough time to reset. And that time starts now. Now let's talk about the mistake that almost everyone makes, and the one that silently destroys any chance of things ever working again. Chasing. Texting them first. Double texting. Checking their stories. Posting things just to get their attention. Trying to remind them what they lost. It feels harmless. It even feels right. Because in your mind you're thinking, if I show them I care, maybe they'll come back. But what you don't realize is, chasing doesn't bring people closer. It pushes them further away. And the reason is simple. Human beings don't value what feels guaranteed. They value what feels uncertain. What feels like it could be lost. So when someone walks away and you immediately chase them, you remove all uncertainty. You show them, no matter what you do, I'm still here. And that creates a dangerous dynamic. Because now they feel in control. And you feel like you're trying to earn something that should have been given freely. And the more you chase, the more that imbalance grows. You start overthinking everything, waiting for replies, analyzing their words, reading between lines that don't even exist. Meanwhile, they're pulling back. Not necessarily because they don't care at all, but because they don't feel the same urgency you do. And here's the hard truth. When someone doesn't feel the risk of losing you, they don't feel the need to fight for you. And chasing removes that risk completely. It tells them, I'm not going anywhere, even if they already did. Now think about this. Have you ever noticed how people suddenly become more interested? When you stop giving them attention? When you stop replying fast? When you stop being available all the time? That's not a coincidence. That's psychology. Attention feels valuable when it's not always available. But when it's constant, it becomes expected. And once it becomes expected, it loses its impact. So when you keep texting them, checking on them, trying to stay present in their life, you're not increasing your value. You're normalizing your presence. And when something becomes normal, it becomes easy to ignore. Now I know what you're thinking, so I should ignore them. No, this is not about playing games. This is about understanding value. There's a difference between silence as a strategy and silence as self-respect. One is manipulative, the other is powerful. Because real power doesn't come from trying to make someone react. It comes from not needing them to. And that's the shift you need to make. Right now, your focus is on them. What they're doing, what they're thinking, whether they miss you. But that focus is costing you your power. Because the more attention you give them, the less attention you give yourself. And that's where everything starts to fall apart. You stop growing. You stop improving. You stop living your life because your energy is stuck on someone who is no longer choosing you. And the truth is, you can't attract someone back by losing yourself. You can't rebuild attraction from a place of desperation, and you definitely can't earn love by chasing someone who already walked away. Love doesn't work like that. Connection doesn't work like that. Respect doesn't work like that. Now here's the shift. The moment you stop chasing, you stop trying to control the outcome. And when you stop trying to control the outcome, you become unpredictable again. And unpredictability creates curiosity. Suddenly, they don't know what you're doing. They don't know how you feel. They don't know if you've moved on. And that uncertainty, that's where attention starts to come back. But here's the important part. You're not doing this to get them back. You're doing this to get yourself back. Because the version of you that chases is not the version of you that they respected. And is definitely not the version of you that you're proud of. So instead of asking, how do I get them back? Start asking, how do I become someone who doesn't need to chase? Because that version of you, that's the one who has options. That's the one who attracts naturally. That's the one who doesn't lose themselves in someone else. And once you become that person, everything changes. Not just in this situation, but in every relationship you'll ever have. Because you stop operating from fear and you start operating from value. And value is something no one can ignore for long.